July is one of my favorite times to be in the national parks. Some of my favorite national parks are best visited in July. So today I want to talk you through the best parks you can visit during the month of July if you're hoping to take a trip. My name is Ash. I'm a former park ranger and the founder of Dirt in My Shoes, and I love the national parks. You cannot keep me away. And I am in the national parks every month of the year. So today I want to break down some of my favorite national parks that you can visit in the month of July. I know this is peak season for national park travel. A lot of you are trying to get out during the summer months and see some of these parks. And truthfully, some of my very favorite national parks are best seen in July, so I'm really excited to share these with you today. But before we jump in, go over to dirtinmyshoes.com/month to get your free list of all the national parks broken down by the best times to visit. I actually have 38 parks on here for the month of July, and then all the other months of the year as well, broken down by which parks are best to visit during that month. And so this list is free, again, at dirtinmyshoes.com/month. So for the month of July, we are focusing on the big mountain parks, which in my opinion, it can't be beat. I love hiking in the mountains. Some of these parks have the best hiking trails in the country. So it's really important that you time these parks well, though, because if you go too early, there's still going to be a lot of snow on those trails and a lot of closures. And then the other thing that a lot of people don't think about is if you go too late, then you start getting into wildfire season, especially here out west. And those wildfires will obstruct your views. It will cause closures. It'll make it hard to breathe sometimes, depending on how close that fire is. And unfortunately, that's just something that happens pretty much every summer. And so July is kind of the sweet spot where you get in before the wildfires usually, and you're able to still hike trails that aren't snow covered. One caveat to that is if you are hoping to get into the backcountry of some of these parks, you will want to wait until later in July or early August because a lot of those bigger trails in the backcountry do still have snow well into July. So keep that in mind. But if you're just planning on doing the main can't miss things, the smaller trails, the front country stuff, then July will be perfect for you in these parks. Park number one that is perfect for a July visit is Denali National Park in Alaska. I actually worked right outside of this national park, and I love this national park with all my heart. It is so beautiful. It feels wild and free and rugged, and it's just a really amazing park that everybody should visit. So the namesake of this park, Denali, is the tallest peak in North America. It's over 20,000 feet high above sea level, which is crazy. And it just dominates the landscape out here. As you get closer to the mountain, you will just be left in awe. And there's so much wildlife. There's so many cool things that you can see in this park. So July is a great time to be here. The weather is usually pretty nice. This park has a pretty short visiting season. You're in the middle of Alaska where in the interior, the temperature fluctuations are huge. And so going right smack dab in the summer usually is a pretty safe bet for having good weather for exploring. And hopefully you'll be able to see the mountain while you're here. It does like to hide behind the clouds and it can be a little bit elusive. And so crossing my fingers that you'll be able to see it while you visit. Now, the other reason that I recommend Denali in the summer, specifically July, is that this is also a great time to hit the other Alaska parks while you're already up there, especially Katmai. Katmai has those big giant grizzly bears that fish for salmon in the waterfall, and July is peak season for that. So keep that in mind as well. While you're already up there seeing Denali, consider adding in a few more Alaska parks. This is a great time to do it. Number two is Glacier National Park in Montana. This is an incredibly popular park. A lot of people want to go to Glacier, rightly so. I mean, it has some of the best hiking trails in the country. The mountains are huge and beautiful. There's beautiful lakes, tons of wildlife. Just some really, really great mountain landscapes. So Glacier is definitely somewhere to go, but I personally usually don't go until about mid-July. That seems to be the sweet spot for being able to hike the bigger hikes like the Highline Trail or the Grinnell Glacier Trail, while also not going too early, because if you go too early, then the Going to the Sun Road through the park still isn't fully open most of the time. That usually doesn't open until the very end of June or beginning of July. And again, if you go too late, that really puts you into wildfire season. The first time I went to Glacier, I didn't know this, and we went towards the end of August, and some days we could barely even see the mountains. And so it was kind of sad to be there with all the wildfire smoke. And that's why for all my subsequent trips, as I've been going back to Glacier for many, many years, I am usually in the park from about mid-July to the end of July, somewhere in there, to give the trails a chance to get the snow melted off and to try to beat that wildfire season. Park number 3, my personal favorite out of every national park in the country, is Grand Teton National Park in Wyoming. I have grown up visiting this park pretty much every year of my whole life. I adore this park. It's where I got my first job as a park ranger, and so it really is just a very special place to me. But it also has some of the most beautiful mountains and the best hiking in the country. So this park is fantastic in July. You'll be able to get on all of those front country trails. It's usually warm enough that if you want to go paddle boarding or swimming in one of the lakes, you can do that. You have really long days for being out and exploring, seeing the wildlife, just enjoying the beautiful views. It's a fantastic park, and July is a great time to be there. Now, I know this park like the back of my hand. I have hiked, I think, almost every trail in this park at this point. And what I will say is that if you're hoping to do a longer trail, like backpacking or going up and over one of the bigger passes in the backcountry, so that's like Hurricane Pass or Paintbrush Divide, some of those bigger ones, those usually do stay snow covered well into July. And so if I am going to hit one of those bigger trails like the Teton Crest or something like that, I will usually push my trip to the end of July, possibly early August. Again, though, once you start getting into August, a lot of times there will be wildfire smoke that blows in. And so that's just kind of the risk you take. But for the regular front country stuff, if you're wanting to hike back into Cascade Canyon or anything like that, you should be fine in July. You should be able to get to all of those things. Number 4, Mount Rainier National Park in Washington State. This park, like Denali, is just centered around one giant mountain. Mount Rainier is so impressive. It's a volcano. It's over 14,000 feet above sea level. It dominates the skyline in this area. You can see it from Seattle. It's just one of those mountains that really draws you in. So the thing about Mount Rainier that is so great in July, well, there's a lot of things that are great, but the wildflowers. The wildflowers in this park are unreal. And so as you're hiking in this park, especially into mid to late July, you should be seeing a lot of wildflowers along the trail. And it is one of the most magical experiences you can have in any national park. So beyond the wildflowers, why July in Mount Rainier? I learned this the hard way because actually my first visit to Mount Rainier, I went too early in July. We went over July 4th and the trails were still completely covered in snow. You couldn't even hike them. You couldn't navigate them. The rangers were like, please don't try because people are getting lost out here and it's just really hard to find your way. And so we weren't able to do some of the bigger hikes like the Skyline Trail and the Burroughs Trail, which are some of my absolute favorite hikes in the whole country. So that was a disappointment. We went back a couple weeks later. We went more towards like the July 20s, somewhere in there. And most of it was melted out by then. We were able to do all the hiking. And so now when I visit Mount Rainier, as I said, I love this park. I go back almost every year now. It's usually in like later July 20s or later. But then again, if you wait too long, if you start pushing it into August, a lot of times there are wildfires in the area that will obstruct your views. One other reason to wait a little bit later in July is that the road to sunrise actually doesn't usually open until sometimes the beginning, but usually more the middle of July. And that's an area you'll definitely want to see. That area has some gorgeous wildflowers. It actually has some of my favorite hiking trails and views of Mount Rainier. And so definitely wait until that road is open if you're a first-time visitor and you want to see the best of the park. And for park number 5 today, we are staying in Washington State and heading over to North Cascades National Park. This national park is not as well known as the other ones in Washington, but it is absolutely gorgeous. You have huge mountain views. A lot of people mistake this one for Glacier. They look very similar, but North Cascades just isn't as well known and it isn't as busy. And so I love this one, and I will go, usually around the same time I'm in Mount Rainier. I'll do them on the same trip. And July is just the best for this. Again, because North Cascades, even more than Mount Rainier, always has big wildfires in the area. Unfortunately, for like the past few years, every summer they have to close down a portion of the main road through North Cascades because of huge wildfires in the area. And so we were there just a couple years ago, and there was a huge fire that we were able to watch actually from the road. It was massive and really scary. But this does unfortunately happen pretty often in this park or in the surrounding vicinity. So again, July for this one is really good. You should get some good hiking weather. You should be able to get up Cascade Pass, which is one of my favorite trails, sometime starting around mid-July when they open the Cascade River Road. And so just again, kind of those last few weeks of July, that's the perfect time to go for Mount Rainier and also North Cascades. Those are the 5 parks that I want to highlight today. But again, I have 38 national parks that are great for July on the Dirt in My Shoes website. So head over to dirtinmyshoes.com/month to get this free national parks by the month list. You can look over all the great options for the month of July. There's a bunch of them. You can also look at other months and see what would be best for your upcoming vacations. If this video was helpful, please subscribe and go to dirtinmyshoes.com for trip planning help on any of these national parks. I have a lot of information for you to make your dream trip a reality. Happy trails!